Right, you can see the sutta in front of you on your screen. It is the Arana Vibhanga Sutta. Rana means conflict. Arana means non-conflict. So you notice in Pali, you can just add a vowel in front, usually a vowel or a syllable to make it opposite. Now, Vibhanga means to analyze. Sutta means thread or teaching. The thread means it goes back to the Buddha's time. Translation of this title, the Discourse on the Analysis of Non-Conflict. All the suttas in this chapter in the middle length collection, Majjhima, has got the word Vibhanga in it. And so M139, Majjhima Sutta 139. This collection has got 152 suttas. Well, if people ask you, what is the sutta about? One way to say the theme is that there are no problem people, only people with problems. This is quite a famous quotation. Another way of putting it is deal with the problem. Don't blame the person, deal with the problem. Okay. So you notice the transition was first done in 2003. That's quite long ago. So that's why we need proofreading, and we update also as we understand the sutta better. So today the advantage is, notice we have updated it, revised 2022, is that we got the latest translation with lots of updates and corrections and lots of interesting notes, which I'll share with you. All right. So now let's go down to the sutta now. Go down. Right. So okay, pass already. Go up a bit here. Okay, here we are. Arana Vibhanga Sutta, the Discourse on the Analysis of Non-Conflict. Thus have I heard. So that number 230 is the Pali page. This Pali version is by the Pali Text Society in Roman language, Roman letters. So we have this sometimes called the European version. I also use the Sinhalese version, the VJT version, Buddha Jayanti Tipitaka. And I use most often the Burmese edition, the Chatta Sangiti edition, and also the Thai edition. Each country have their own version, a number of other versions. They're not all easy to get, but the main ones are available. So it's very important for translators to compare the various Pali versions, and from there we get what is called the best reading. Remember, these teachings have been preserved for over 2,500 years. They were originally recited like poetry. And Pali is very easy to recite. But sometimes human error can sometimes add some extra word, extra letter, and so on. So, but basically we get a good idea what the teaching is about. We also have a translation of these early suttas in Chinese in the first two volumes of the Chinese Tripitaka. The first two volumes, they are called the Ahan Jing, in other words, the Agamas. So they're not exactly alike, the Pali Sutta and the Agama Sutta, because Agama Sutta were translated from some other dialect, even Sanskrit sometimes. And they belong to some other school other than Theravada. But very often you see very close parallel between the suttas. For example, the Majjhima Sutta has been translated, both the Pali version and the Chinese version, in the collection, a thick book done by Venerable Analayo for his PhD. So this comparative study of the Pali Majjhima Nikaya and the Chinese Madhyama Agama is available free of charge. It's about 500-600 pages long. So if you want this free book, just let me know. You just message message us on Telegram or Facebook, and we can send you quite easily. You know? The Telegram is the easiest. You just put it there and you get it. All right, so thus have I heard. At one time, the Blessed One was staying in Anatta Pindika's park in Jeta's Grove near Savatthi. All right. Now, sometimes you see Jeta's Grove, and then sometimes you see Deer Park. Sometimes you see mango forest, for example. The word grove here means this park or this forest belongs to someone. There's an owner, and he's taken care of it. So maybe he grows only mango trees there and so on. So grove here belongs to Prince Jeta, right? A deer park, of course, usually would be a natural place, and the deer will roam quite freely there. So this park is outside Savatthi, one of the big cities in ancient India. Okay, this city doesn't. Well, the city location is still there, but nobody lives there because after a few thousand years, people living on that area, the ground becomes poor and so on. So people move away to some other place. But the place is still there in India. It's called Sahid Mahid today in India. There, the Blessed One addressed the monks, bhikshus, you know. So here the monks are seated down peacefully, meditating. No one is talking. Sometimes the Sutta says that these monks are so disciplined, they don't even cough. Right? In other words, they're very healthy. It's difficult to imagine they don't cough at all over such a long time. So another thing is we're talking about a time when there's no microphone, no PA system. But then you must remember 2,500 years ago, the decibels are much, much lower. You don't have all these city sounds around us. If you're in the city, believe me, it's very noisy. You don't know it. We are so used to it, you know. That is why sometimes we don't hear so well. So in the forest where the Buddha lives, so peaceful. When you go to the forest, you know, you find you can talk over a long distance, you can hear each other. And the Buddha's voice is loud and clear. The Buddha was very healthy person of the warrior class. So I just say bhikshus. This could be the exact word, you know, bhikshu, bhikshu, all right? There's no S. This is, the bhikshu here is English. You can find this word in one of those big English and American dictionaries, bhikshu. That's why I use this word. It is called anglicized word. So the monks together will, in unison, will say, Bhante, and I can hear this very nice resounding response, Bhante, meaning we are present, we are ready to hear. The monks replied to the Blessed One in assent. The Blessed One said this. So once you see this word, the Blessed One said this, the teaching is starting. Now this sutta, Arana Vibhanga Sutta, is special in the sense it is one of the best structured sutta. Best structured. That means it has got an introduction, and then the syllabus, a set of theses, and then each idea is analyzed, and then after that there is a summary, a summation, and then conclusion, and then something special. The Buddha mentioned this monk who is the foremost, who is very good in non-conflict. We'll find out who he is a little later when we come to the end. So the Buddha is going to start teaching. Bhikshus, I will teach you the analysis of non-conflict, or basically, what is non-conflict? Listen and pay close attention to it. I'm going to speak. So this is preparing everyone. Because some of them will be meditating, so they'll come out of their meditation to listen. Okay, some may be quietly whispering to another monk. So now they're ready. So again here, the monks together says, Ama Bhante, yes, or Sadhu Bhante, yeah, yes, Bhante. The monks replied to the Blessed One in assent. The Blessed One said this. So notice here again, you see the sentence being mentioned, reminding us the teaching is starting. So from this moment, it is the ipsissima verba. Ipsissima verba is the Latin meaning sort of actual words with the Buddha. But to be quite honest, we don't know exactly how the Buddha spoke. This is structured Pali. This is put into very nice sentences so that they can be chanted, they can be recited properly, people can remember them. It is unlikely the Buddha spoke exactly as in the sutta. It sounds very odd, very mechanical, right? So here the monk reciters, the monk editors, they rearrange all this. In English, we call this transcribing. So, for example, I give this lesson and then somebody want to publish a book on it, they will write down how I've spoken. And when we talk, we tend to be quite colloquial, quite, we don't keep to the grammar rules strictly. So once you want to put it into a book, then you have to revise and make sure the sentences are properly written and so on. So this is what happens to sutta also, so that we can have a better idea, a better way of preserving the teaching. Imagine these teachings have been preserved for 2,500 years, so this system works. Okay, so now this section 3, notice the heading summary. So these are the theses. These are the main ideas. So you have this part 3, and you have letter A. That means there are other letters, A to F, in fact. I put a letter so it's easier. I can say 3A rather than 1, 2, 3. No? So 3A. Okay? So you notice that the 3 is highlighted. It means this is the internal numbering of the Pali Pali passages, or Pali, we call them verses, paragraphs. Okay, each Pali verse has got more than one paragraph, so we normally use the word verses or passage. The A is in normal print. Okay, so that means A is a kind of within that paragraph, as you will see in a moment. So A, the Buddha mentions the first. This is the first idea. You should not pursue sensual pleasure. It is low, vulgar, coarse, ignoble, not beneficial. And you should not pursue self-mortification. It is painful, ignoble, not beneficial. And those of you who have been studying suttas, you know this sounds familiar, right? And you look at the next line. Pictures without turning to either of these extremes, there is the middle way. Fully understood or self-awakened to by the Tathagata, thus come. That gives rise to vision, to knowledge, to peace, to direct knowledge, to awakening, to nirvana. All right, there you are. So this is passage A. Yes, you are right. This comes from the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the first discourse. So here we have another sutta that quotes the first discourse, right? So if you now go to the latest version of the Dhammacakka Sutta, you find there's a long note there where I've written down all the major suttas that quote the first sermon. The first sermon is quite fascinating because the Dhammacakka Sutta is not the exact words of the first sermon. It is a kind of, like I say, a transcript. It is like a news reporter's report of this is what happened during the first sermon. Okay, imagine the Buddha spoke for like 4 or 5 days. The monks became arahats like during the teaching of the non-self sutta. So the Buddha has spoken a lot of teachings and answered a lot of questions, even taught the meditation. So you find many of these other teachings scattered here and there in the different suttas. So all this is now mentioned in the latest version, the updated version of the Dhammacakka Sutta, SD 1.1. Okay. All right, so this passage is about the middle way. Let me just say something about the middle way first. because further down the Buddha will say something, other things. So I'm going to give a background. Why is the middle way so important? It makes Buddhism, the Buddha's teaching, very special. Other religions often would talk about what's called duality. You notice here there's a duality. You look at the first two lines. First line is sensual pleasure, and second line keyword is self-mortification. They are opposites. Sensual pleasure is what in the Buddhist time, some people think, oh, you know, why torture our body? We should enjoy ourselves. This was a time when there are people who simply believe in sexual pleasures because the country is very big now, unified by powerful kings, and there's commerce going on, money economy going on, there are lots of leisure time. And this was a time when you have all these classics of pleasure like Kama Sutra, which is not Buddhist, written at the time. So the Buddha said, don't get carried away by sensual pleasure. In other words, don't get controlled by your body. It is something low. That means animal-like, vulgar, not refined, coarse, ignoble. It doesn't bring you to the noble path, and not beneficial. It causes lots of pain. All right. And then self-mortification is the other end of it. Some people think, okay, I don't want to enjoy pleasure. I want to torture my body because this body is bad, it's evil. So I want to get rid of it. And if I should die doing it, I'll be reborn in heaven or even become enlightened. The Jains, for example, believe this. Now notice this self-mortification or self-torture, the adjectives, there are only three of them, right? Painful, ignoble, not beneficial, right? The last two are the same as the previous one, but the words low, vulgar, coarse are missing. It seems as if the Buddha is saying, oh, okay, self-mortification is not regarded as low, vulgar, or coarse. But it's not noble either. It's not low, vulgar, or coarse because those who practice this kind of very strict yogic penance, they will be reborn in happy states, in fact, but they will not get awakening. And because the torture of the body is painful, it's not very helpful for them. They might just die and that's it. So the word low, vulgar, coarse is not mentioned because of that. All right. So these are duality. To get carried away by the pleasure or to deny the body. This is duality. Most religions have this duality, good and bad, God and devil, and so on. And these religions will tell you, you better choose the right one. Especially God religions, so you have to choose God. If you don't, then there's heaven, there is hell. So if you choose God, you go to heaven. You don't choose God, you go to hell. So these dualities often create extreme religions that are not very tolerant. But notice the Buddha doesn't stop here. The Buddha doesn't say there are only these two, choose one. Instead, the Buddha said there are these two extremes, but you have to let go of them. There is the middle way. What does this mean? So the teaching here is that there is no one in Buddhism, but there is the zero. The middle way is like the zero. In fact, it is because of teachers like the Buddha and the ancient mathematicians of India that the idea of zero, the cipher, originated. Sunya, okay? Emptiness, the teaching of emptiness. So from there, they have this concept of the number zero, because before Buddha's time, this mathematician did not have the idea of zero. If you look up in the encyclopedia on the zero, you'll find it's mentioned that the idea started in India with the religious people. So it's connected with Buddhism. Why is zero so big, so meaningful, so significant and important to us? Now imagine the number zero on a piece of paper, right? Now on the left side, you start writing from zero to the left, 0, 1, after 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. in this case, you normally will put -1, -2, -3, okay? And then on the right-hand side of 0, you have 1, 2, 3, the positive numbers. So you have 0 in the center, then a minus on the left, the normal positive numbers on the right. So the 0 is in the center. The 0 is in the center of all numbers. So it is the middle way in that sense of numbers. But in Buddhist teachings, the 0 means renunciation, letting go of all this, nothing to do with it. It's not a number. It's a non-zero. It's a space. A 0 means there is space for you to grow, to develop. It's a beautiful idea, isn't it? So the beautiful space is the Eightfold Path. And practicing the path, you reach Nirvana. Notice we have Nirvana mentioned at the end here. So Nirvana is the third, the middle quality between these two. You don't have to choose between dualities. You let go of them, then you attain this numberless state. It's neither 1 nor 0. That's Nirvana. If it's neither 1 nor 0, you can't argue anything about it. So this is the idea of this middle way. No? Now, if you say, wow, this is nice, I can't remember what you said. Well, it's all there in the notes in the latest version of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, ST 1.1. It's all there in the introduction. All right. Okay. So the Buddha mentions A. This is A, idea A. Then let's look at it. We're still looking at the ideas. Now B, second point, the Buddha says, you should know what praise is. You should know what blame is. And knowing what praise is, knowing what blame is, you should neither praise nor blame, but teach only the Dhamma. So we already have a good idea. The Buddha is talking about how we should teach Dhamma. When teach Dhamma, you should not praise or blame people. This is not easy, okay? But this is the ideal. We try our best. If you can do this, then people will feel happy. In fact, this is what is in the next point, C. You should know how to discern joy, happiness. And knowing how to discern joy, you should pursue joy within yourself. Notice, find the joy inside you, not outside you. Not outside us means not through the senses. Because the senses is always looking for something outside, objects are outside. Just look within us, that means through meditation. Details later, it's just the syllabus. No? D, you should not utter secret speech. You should not utter strong words before another, right? So here again, let me not say too much about this. Let's keep it quiet for a while. So it's very interesting. We'll later look at it. E, you should speak without hurry, not hurriedly. Here again, you notice the Buddha is talking to the monks, how to teach Dhamma. Don't talk too fast. Talk without hurry. Of course, we should not talk too slow either. It might make the audience sleepy. I remember when I was younger, I used to speak quite fast. So when I read the sutta, I said, oops, I better slow down a bit. Okay? F, you should not cling to a local or regional language. You should not reject standard usage. This is very interesting advice. It's talking about using words especially. We should not get caught up with local dialect, in other words. We must speak something which most people will understand, basically. So these are all different advice the Buddha is giving when we are talking about Dhamma, right? So this is a summary of the analysis of non-conflict. So these are strict advice the Buddha is giving us on how to present the Dhamma, teach the Dhamma in such a way that people will listen and be happy and benefit. All right, so notice, as I mentioned, so there is the introduction, then the syllabus. Now in this, come to the third part, the Buddha is going to explain each of them very carefully. All right. Now, so here again, you see the heading middle way, and then you see paragraph 4, and then you see this number in square brackets. Once you see square brackets, that means in this case here, this number is an internal number. It is a special number for this paragraph. And then it's italicized. If you see italicized number or italicized passage, it means it has been, it's a repetition. It has appeared earlier. So here 3a, that means it has already appeared in 3, section 3, and it is part A. So you look up earlier on section 3a, you get the same words, right? You can see very same words there, right? This is the one, 3a, okay? So now the Buddha is going to explain. The Buddha repeats everything because remember the audience got no notes like what you have now. Before you have to listen very intently, not to miss anything Buddha says. The Buddha repeats everything. But right, I should put everything here in this tray in italics. Ne? You should not pursue sensual pleasure. It is low, vulgar, the way of the village, coarse, worldly, ignoble, not beneficial. And you should not pursue self-mortification. It is painful, ignoble, not beneficial. So it is said. In what connection is this said? So why is this said, right? Now the Buddha explains, section by section, okay? Now I've used a lot of spaces now, so because we are not publishing this book as a commercial enterprise, so we don't have to worry about space, right? And so it's easy to read. What we have done in the Sutta Discovery is we have transmuted, we have changed the oral tradition into a scribal tradition, into a written tradition, a reading tradition. So it's easy on the eye. At the same time, we do not cut short the sutta. Many of the translators you find they cut short the sutta, and so it's very difficult to read if you cut it short. 4.2. The pursuit of pleasure is highlighted. So that's the key word from the idea from the previous passage. The pursuit of pleasure of one whose happiness is connected to sense pleasure. It is low, vulgar, coarse, ignoble, not beneficial. It's a state with suffering, not a state with suffering, with trouble, with despair, with fever. It is the wrong way. Okay, let me just briefly say something. Here is this is a statement, okay? When you run after pleasure, when you get it, fine, you feel happy for a moment, and then you keep on looking for more pleasure. And then you get it, you don't get it. If you don't get it, you feel unhappy. Either way, there is always this chasing, and you're so busy chasing it, you don't even know you are suffering. So that's the meaning. Yeah. So here the Buddha is saying, this is the wrong way. Don't get caught up chasing after things and not enjoying it in the real sense of the word. Then 4.3, letting go of the pursuit of pleasure. Notice the Buddha didn't say letting go of pleasure, it's letting go of the pursuit, stopping the chase. Later on with meditation, you begin to understand the meaning of this sentence. We let go of the pursuit of pleasure. We stop chasing after pleasure. Of one whose happiness is connected to sensual pleasure. In other words, one who is carried away, addicted to pleasure. Low, vulgar, coarse, ignoble, not beneficial. Now notice the adjectives are repeated. The Buddha wants to make sure that what he's saying is understood in the right way. So here it says, this state, letting go of all those pleasures, is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. Okay. So now here the Buddha is just saying this quite plainly. There's no problem here, all right? Now 4.4, the pursuit of self-mortification, painful, ignoble, not beneficial. It's a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. Letting go of the pursuit of self-mortification, painful, ignoble, not beneficial, is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. Okay. So That's all the Buddha is saying there, and people are quite familiar with this. 4.6. So it is in reference to this, it is said, you should not pursue sensual pleasure. It is low, vulgar, coarse, ignoble, not beneficial. And you should not pursue self-mortification. It is painful, ignoble, not beneficial. So now the Buddha say, okay, now we have this question. Why did we ask this? Why did we make this statement? All right. We further down. Without turning to either of these extremes, there is the middle way, fully understood by the Tathagata. Tathagata refers to the Buddha, thus come, that gives rise to vision, to knowledge, to peace, to direct knowledge, to awakening, to nirvana. So it is said. In what connection is this said? All right. Now I'm going to explain a few words here. You find there are lots of phrases put in a register, in a list. Sometimes the words are synonyms, they have the same meaning. So sometimes they show a bit of progression. So in this case, this understanding, according to the Buddha, gives rise to vision. Vision means you see. You, for example, when you understand something, you say, I see, right? So if you have a good idea of it, and when you see something, knowledge arises in you. And when you know something, there is this peace of mind. And this peace of mind, or this concentration through meditation, helps you to see, experience for yourself directly into the truth. So now it's not something you hear from someone else, something you read in the suttas, but you directly see it, you directly understand it. And with that kind of direct understanding, you awaken to true reality. This awakening means you are free from ignorance. And then you're at the nirvana. You're free from suffering, right? Or at least you have the vision of the nirvana. You can see, say, wow, now I understand when this is no more there, there's no more suffering. That is a vision of nirvana. So the Buddha asks again, so it is said, right? So here the Buddha makes a statement and then say, okay, you know what what does this mean? In what connection is this said? Then the Buddha says, it is in this very noble eightfold path, that is to say, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Right, so these are the eightfold paths, because there are 8 things here. So it is in reference to this that it is said, without turning to these extremes, there is the middle way, awakened to by the Tathagata. That gives rise to vision, to knowledge, to peace, to direct knowledge, to awakening, to nirvana. So the middle way is the eightfold path. By practicing moral virtue, that is right speech, right action, right livelihood, moral virtue. This is training the body, these 3. Then your mind is at peace, keeping the precepts, right? There is right livelihood here. This number 4. This is a set of 4. So sorry, 3, 4, 5. Right? Is your taming of the body and the senses, so that they don't distract you. And this is the basis for these 3 meditation, 6, 7, 8. Right effort, right mindfulness, right livelihood. Right? And all these combined, moral virtue and mental concentration, brings you this one, wisdom. Wisdom that is to right view, right intention. When you have your mind sees things rightly, your actions, your karma also is good. It's right. So this is actually the result. But it's listed first because the right view must be present in all these other 7 limbs for it to be noble. Without right view, there's no right intention. You see all the right here because of right view. There is underlying all this, there is this right view, right? So here we have this. Eightfold Path. And the Buddha says, this is what we should practice. Okay, so this is all quite familiar to you, nothing new. Since it's nearly 9 o'clock, I will stop here for a while. Then after that, we go into the interesting part where the Buddha talks about how to teach Dhamma properly, or how to teach. Some people teach it wrongly. How is it? Why is it called wrong, and so on. So we stop here just for the moment. Yeah?
Thank you. Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Right, let's continue now. Now, before I continue, let's just have a hint for this. Look at this Eightfold Path for those who want to memorize it, right? Previously, we already had a bit of mention of it. Now, look at the first letter V and then I, okay? VI, V for view, I for intention, okay? VI, very important. VI also can be very important. And then this is one set. This is right view. So it's very important, very useful to remember this. So first VI, and then SALE, sale. It's very easy to remember. VI, sale, very important. Sale, all right? Because you're going to sell Buddhism, so to speak. Sale, speech, action, livelihood, effort. Okay, very important. Sale. And then MC. MC, you are the master of ceremony. You are going to present this Dhamma to others. So MC, mindfulness, concentration. Very important sale MC. So you are all very important sale MC. So this is a very easy way to remember according to the 3 trainings. All right. Okay, there's a bit of mnemonic, a bit of hint. Okay, now let's continue with the next section, no teaching of Dhamma. What does that mean? Section 6, notice it as 3b, it refers to the 3 part B. You should know what praise is, you should know what blame is. And knowing what praise is and blame is, you should neither praise nor blame, but teach only Dhamma. Now here, my understanding, this is a kind of what's called a provisional teaching. The Buddha is teaching the new monks, the young monks, to make sure that they teach in a very effective way, right? So that people don't blame them. Right? So it is said, says the Buddha, in what connection is this said? How bhikshus are there praise and blame and no teaching of Dhamma? Right? So when do we praise and blame? It's not very helpful. Okay, so one, when you say, so Buddha is very objective. He says, when you say, all those who are bent on the pursuit of pleasure, of one whose happiness is connected to sense pleasure, low, vulgar, coarse, ignoble, not beneficial, these are suffering with trouble, with despair, with fever or frenzy. They all have followed the wrong way. Thus you blame some. All right. So the Buddha is saying, if you talk in this way, you talk about people, you say all those, and then they. At first, when you read just this, you might say, what's wrong with saying this? But that's the thing, a lot of people talk in terms of people, all right? In other words, later on, you find out what the Buddha is going to say, all right? Let me just give you a hint here. The Buddha says, okay, here you blame some because some people will say, oh, okay, I agree with this. Some people will say, no, I don't agree with this because I feel I'm being blamed for it. So when you talk about people, they might feel that you're referring to them, and some of them may feel uncomfortable, all right? And they feel upset. People easily get upset over certain things. So this is very person-centered, in other words, person bias. Of course, the word person-centered may sound very good, but sometimes it becomes personal with it, then people may misunderstand that you're talking bad about them, things like that. So here, basically, the Buddha is saying, if you talk about they, people, then some of them might think you are blaming them, that their practice is wrong. So this is the first one, all right? Then number 2, when you say, all those who have let go of the pursuit of pleasure, this is the opposite. The previous one is those who are caught up with pleasure, and these are those who have given up pleasure, of one whose happiness is connected to sense pleasures, low, vulgar, coarse, ignoble, not beneficial. They are without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. They all have followed the right way. You thus praise some, right? So here again, some will say, oh, okay, they feel happy because they think they're right. Right? So only some will think that way, but not all, right? So these are two opposite statements. Number 3, when you say all those who are bent on the pursuit of self-mortification, painful, ignoble, not beneficial, these are the suffering with trouble, with despair, with fever. They all have followed the wrong way. So here again, they. Okay, let's see further down. You thus blame some. When you say, wait, did I jump something? Correct, huh? All right, when you say all those who have let go of the pursuit of self-mortification, okay, it's a new topic now, self-mortification, painful, ignoble, not beneficial, these are without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. They all have followed the right way. You thus praise some. All right. Now, if your mind is whispering to you and say, oh dear, I don't understand anything, the thinking, what makes you don't understand? Just listen, let the words flow through you, and then after that, everything will fit nicely. Give it time, all right? 5, when you say, all those who have not abandoned the fatal being, okay, this is Buddha's going a little higher, those are still caught up with being reborn and becoming this, becoming that, are full of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. These are with suffering, with trouble, with despair, with fever. They all have followed the wrong way. You thus blame some. Why do you blame some? I've underlined the words for you, they, because we refer to people, not to the situation. Number 6, when you say all those who have abandoned the fetter of being, it is opposite of this. These are those who have abandoned the wish to be reborn, getting caught up with rebirth. They are without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. They all have followed the right way. You thus praise some. Now notice here, this teacher, this preacher is not really saying anything wrong, but he's not putting it completely correctly either, because some people may like it, some people may not like it, because he's focusing on the person. So in this case, praise some, blame some. This is how bhikshus, there are praise and blame, and no teaching of dhamma. So the dhamma is not really effectively taught. Okay. So the basic idea here is the teacher focuses on the people, the person doing it, not the action. Okay. So now the Buddha goes on to the opposite of this, teaching only dhamma. Why only dhamma? With neither praise nor blame. That's the meaning. 8, and how bhikshus is there neither praise nor blame, but teaching only dhamma? When you do not say, all those who are bent on sensual pleasure of one whose happiness is connected to sensual pleasure, low, vulgar, etc., and they are suffering, etc., they all have followed the wrong way. You don't say this is what has been mentioned earlier, but instead you say, notice this sentence, this is very important. The sentence, the pursuit of pleasure. The pursuit of pleasure is a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. Notice it, pursuit of pleasure. Then you teach only dhamma. Now, this is the key passage. Make sure you understand this. Compared to the previous one, they, referring to people, here, it, the pursuit of pleasure, this action is wrong. right? So, I mean, those of you who have done management courses, you find you're familiar with this. Don't blame the person, blame the mistake. Or better, you correct the mistake. Don't blame the person, all right? So that's the meaning here. Look at the action. What is wrong here? The wrong thing here is this action, pursuit of pleasure. Then number two, when you do not say, all those who have let go of the pursuit of pleasure, notice all those, or of one whose happiness is connected with sense pleasure, low, vulgar, coarse, etc. These are without suffering, without trouble. They all follow the right way. This is what has been mentioned earlier. But instead say, the letting go of the pursuit of pleasure is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. Then you teach only Dhamma. So here again, the stress is on the action, the state, not the person. You're not personal here. So when you say doing this is suffering, when people listen, they know you're neither praising nor blaming them. You're teaching them, so that they can listen to it, they can relate to it in an open way. Already here you can see it's quite clear, right? Okay, then number three, when you do not say, all those who are bent on self-mortification, painful, ignoble, not beneficial, they are with suffering and so on, they all have followed the wrong way. So this is the previous one. So, but instead say, the pursuit of self-mortification is a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. Then you teach only Dhamma. So here, in other words, when the action of doing self-torture, that is what brings pain. So we don't say that person is suffering. No, we say this action of self-torture brings suffering. So here we talk about the action. Number four, when you do not say, all those who have let go of the pursuit of self-mortification, painful, ignoble, not beneficial, these are without suffering, without trouble, and so on, they all have followed the right way, right? You don't say that, because that is person bias. But instead say, the letting go of the pursuit of self-mortification is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. Then you teach only Dhamma. You focus on the state again. So that's becoming very clear, right? 5. When you do not say, all those who have abandoned the fetter of being are full of suffering, without trouble, with despair, fever. These are with suffering, with trouble, with despair, with fever. They all have followed the wrong way. But instead, you say, as long as the fetter of being is not abandoned, being too is not abandoned, then you teach only Dhamma. All right? So here you talk about the actual situation. 6. When you do not say, all those who have abandoned the fetter of being, right? So you don't stress on the person, people who have given up desire for rebirth and so on, that they follow the right way. Not, you don't use the word people, but instead you say, as long as the fetter of being is abandoned, being too is abandoned, right? So when this fetter is overcome, this mental view is gone, then there is no more rebirth. You're talking about the state. Then you teach only Dhamma. So it is in this connection, it is said, you should know what praise is, you should know what blame is. And knowing what praise is, what and blame is, you should neither praise nor blame, but teach only Dhamma. So there you are. So this is the first part. And this is, the idea is when you teach about the Dhamma in this way, about rebirth and the two extremes, sensual pleasure and self-mortification, focus on the action, not the person. Right, so this is 3B. No? Now the Buddha goes on to 3C. The 5 chords of sense pleasure. That is the which hints at what the Buddha is going to talk about. You should know how to discern joy. And knowing how to discern joy, you should pursue joy within yourself. What does this mean? It means, you see, when we talk about meditation, you find some people will tell you very strange things like, oh, don't feel happy, don't look for joy, don't get attached to this, because all this will bring suffering, right? The Buddha says the other way. He says, you should know what joy really is. What kind of joy is it that is good in meditation? So it is said. In what connection is this said? What is this joy? Okay. Bhikshus, there are these 5 chords of sense pleasure. All right, there are these 5 things that bring us desire to get caught up with it. What are the 5? Forms cognized by the eye that are desirable, agreeable, pleasurable, lovable, connected with sense desire, arousing lust. Because here, if you look at first forms and you see second word is sounds, then you know, oh, this is about the 5 senses. So these are called 5 chords of sense pleasures, because they're like cords, like ropes. They tie you. You get caught, tied to them, held down by them, burdened by them. So first thing is, we are attracted to forms. We love to see beautiful forms, right? Pictures, people, and so on. And then desire, lust arises, and we suffer as a result. Number 2, sounds cognized by the ear that are desirable, agreeable, pleasurable, lovable, connected with sensual desire, arousing lust. So we also can get caught up with desire by sounds. We hear sounds, we get carried away, we get distracted. So this is the second chord of sense pleasure, sounds. The desire for it, in other words. Then 3, smells. Some people get caught up with smells. Smells cognized by the nose that are desirable, agreeable, pleasurable, lovable, connected with sensual desire, arousing lust. Everything is defined almost like a legal book. No? So this is the 3rd chord of sense pleasure. Some people get caught up with smells. They get attached to smells. They like certain smells. Then 4, tastes cognized by the tongue that are desirable, agreeable, pleasurable, lovable, connected with sense of pleasure, arousing lust. Which is very common, right? Different kinds of food, we get caught up with the taste. We get attached to it. And then number 5 is touches, feeling here, feeling the sense of touch, cognized by the body, that are desirable, agreeable, pleasurable, lovable, connected with sensual desire, arousing lust. And also room temperature, for example, included in here too, right? Now, of these 5 chords of sense pleasure, why does the Buddha mention each of them as cognized by? For example, form cognized by the eye, sounds cognized by the ear, smell, nose, taste, tongue, body, touches. These are the functions of each of these senses, if you like. They are mentioned in this very special way because, according to early Buddhist psychology, there is no synesthesia. In other words, the ear doesn't smell. The nose doesn't taste. Although sometimes we hear about this mixture of the senses. For example, some people, they hear some sounds and they see musical patterns, right? It's not because of the hearing. It happens in the mind. It's in the mind that this synesthesia, that this mix-up of senses occur. Right? That's the meaning here, okay? So there is synesthesia, but it doesn't happen at the sense level itself, it happens at the mind level. That's the meaning here. Yeah? Anyway, the Buddha say, okay, these are the 5 chords of sense pleasures: form, sound, smell, taste, touches. We get caught up with these things. Now, again here, we must remember that these things in themselves are harmless. They're not to be blamed. It's our attachment to them that causes the problem. Okay, there is another sutta which is coming soon where we'll be talking about this in more detail. Now the Buddha is talking to the monks, so he talks a bit more graphically. Then look at 9.2. I've subtitled it as dung-like pleasure. There's nothing. It's not my own word here. I've translated from what the Pali word is from the text itself. No? Now, says the Buddha, the physical pleasure and the physical joy and the mental pleasure that arise dependent on these 5 chords of sensual pleasure are called sense pleasure because they're based on the senses. A dung of pleasure. Okay, this is the one. A dung of pleasure. Né? The Pali word I think is gutta, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So here, sometimes the word milha is used, meaning filthy pleasure. Another way of translating it. So why does the Buddha use this powerful word? Because here, in the end, our body we have to wash our body. It's going to smell, and there are all kinds of liquids oozing out from the openings and so on. Right. So it's a dung of pleasure. A pleasure of the crowd. Right? Notice how people always get drawn to crowds and they feel excited, they feel wow, they're like in heaven and so on. An ignoble pleasure. Okay, but it's difficult for the crowd to understand. In fact, you find that those administrators wouldn't like to hear this either, because then if you don't have all this crowd pleasure, then you lose money, the country won't be rich. So that's the way of the world, in other words. So here the Buddha is talking to monks, talking to those who do not want to get involved with this kind of worldliness. So here the Buddha says it should not be pursued, should not be cultivated, should not be developed. This pleasure should be feared, I say. So here the Buddha said this is a kind of pleasure that's not going to help you. That's going to make you feel distracted. You won't be able to focus. You won't be able to do much good, really. So this is only a provisional statement. The first part, there's something better going to come. So this is the negative one. Now comes the positive one. 9.3. This is the opposite, the positive one, the 4 dhyanas or jhanas. Here, bhikshus, quite secluded from sensual pleasures. Notice, free ourselves from the body, free ourselves from the sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome mental states, free ourselves from a negative mind, right? So free from the body, free from the mind. That's what the first line means. He attains and dwells in the first dhyana, accompanied by initial application and sustained application, accompanied by zest and joy born of solitude. Here meaning, when you meditate, you let go of the 5 senses, they don't trouble you, no more distractions. Initial application means you direct the mind to the object. Sustained application means you keep the mind there. That's a simple meaning. And then joy, very exciting joy arises. And then there is this comfort, joy meaning the comfort born of solitude. That means your mind is free from the sense distractions. So your mind is by itself, so to speak, and it feels very joyful. Okay, so this is the first jhana. No? Now look at the second jhana with the stealing of initial application and sustained application. Now this line is italicized because it's important. It means we let go of this. It's already mentioned earlier, accompanied by initial application, sustained application. Here in the second jhana, the stealing, it becomes calm. You let go of it, renounce it. So when this is gone, by gaining inner tranquility, inner peace of the body and the oneness of mind, He attains and dwells in the second dhyana, free from initial application and sustained application, accompanied by zest and joy born of concentration. So here notice only zest and joy remains. And solitude is replaced by the word concentration. So in a sense, in the first dhyana, the mind is still not fully focused, as it is in the second dhyana. Second dhyana, the mind is really focused because it's totally let go of the body. All right? So this is second dhyana, even a more refined joy. Let's look at the next jhana further down. Again, you see first line says, with the fading away of zest. So these are jhana factors. Huh? So next one to renounce, we renounce zest. Zest disappears by itself. Then he dwells equanimous, his mind is balanced, mindful and clearly knowing. Here, this clearly knowing is a different kind of knowledge from the daily life. Here, the mind knows what's going on, this peace and joy. And that's all. No sound, smell, taste, touch. Eh? He feels joy with the body. In other words, he feels it personally by himself. Right? And this is he attains and dwells in the third dhyana, of which the noble ones declare, happily he dwells in equanimity and mindfulness. The mind is totally balanced and calm, and yet very clear. So it's not a hypnotic state. This person is knowing this joy and peace clearly in his mind. Then in the next stage, again, there is this letting go with the abandoning of joy, abandoning of pain. Joy and pain are both all gone. This happiness, in other words, there is neutral feeling here. And with the earlier disappearance of pleasure and displeasure, which are mental, he attains and dwells in the fourth dhyana that is neither painful nor pleasant, and with mindfulness fully purified by equanimity. So here, this is a neutral, mentally neutral state in the sense that the mind is calm and balanced. There's neither pleasure nor pain. But it is not, there is no feeling here. It is a sense of total peacefulness. It's like you have finished your meal, you have eaten your favorite meal, and you feel so satisfied. You don't want to eat anymore, full already. That kind of something like that. And 9.4, the conclusion, the Buddha says, this is called the joy of renunciation, right? Why? Because at every stage, you renounce something. You renounce at least one of those jhana factor. It's like you're flying the hot air balloon. So you let go the sandbag one by one. The more sandbag you let go, the higher you go, something like that. So this is called the joy of renunciation. What do you renounce? You renounce the five senses. In other words, you renounce having to attend to all the sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. The joy of seclusion, you are free from distractions and hindrances. The joy of peace, the joy of awakening. So it is a joy in this sense. And this joy, says the Buddha, should be cultivated. It should be developed. This joy should not be feared, I said. So I say, no? So here the Buddha is saying, this is the kind of joy which is higher, which is something you won't suffer, even when you think you don't get it, all right? Thus, it is in reference to this that it is said, you should know how to discern joy. Knowing how to discern joy, you should pursue joy within yourself through meditation. Now, even if you don't attain jhana, you do simple breath meditation like what you've been doing, you find you feel some sense of peace and joy in a simple way. Even though you may not get focused, at the end of the meditation, there's a sense of calm. And that feels good compared to daily life. So this is one section on the 5 causes of sense pleasures and pleasure and pain. Yeah? Now we come to the next section on speech. secret speech on strong words. This is passage 10, and here brackets 3D, right? So this the original phrase comes from section 3, part D. You should not utter secret speech, you should not utter strong words before another. So it is said, in what connection as they said? Here, bhikshus, 1, when you know the secret speech spoken in private to be false, wrong, not beneficial, you should, to the best of your ability, not utter it, right? So some things are not worth telling, not worth talking about, because they're not true, they're wrong, and they're not helpful at all. So don't talk about it, it's not helpful. It's a gossip, or it is some sad things, right? It's not beneficial. Don't utter it. For example, in the case of the Buddha, King Pasenadi's wife, Malika, right? She passed away. She was reborn because of a negative thought when she passed away, born in a suffering state. So when the king asked the Buddha where the queen is reborn, the Buddha didn't say anything, because in this case, it's not false, but it's just not beneficial. So Buddha didn't say anything. So what more if something is false? There's no point talking about it. It's not going to be very helpful. It is wrong. Right? Don't talk about it. So this is about private speech to, say, close friends, or when people come to you and ask you a special question just between the two of you. So be careful how you answer it. Number 2, when you know the secret speech, the private speech to be true, right, but not beneficial, right? Maybe it's about someone, something about someone, you should train yourself not to utter it. It's not beneficial, although it is true and right, you don't have to say it, right? For example, A says something bad about this person and is right about this person. Maybe this person doesn't talk properly, or too tall, too short, too fat, too thin, or doesn't look handsome, whatever. We don't have to tell these things. Not helpful, right? That's the meaning here. 3, but when you know the secret speech to be true, right, beneficial, keyword here is beneficial, then you may utter, you may speak the secret speech, knowing the right time to do so. So even when something is true, right, and beneficial, you should say it at the right time, the proper time. If saying it at the wrong time may not be helpful either, right? Here, bhikshus. Okay, so this part on secret speech is finished, right? So here meaning something that we tell people in private. Okay, 10.3 is where sometimes we find some teachers, they may be using, they may use strong words, they may even scold us because we are lazy or we're not paying attention, things like that, right? So here, 10.3, the Buddha says, here, bhikshus, when you know the strong words uttered before another to be false, wrong, not beneficial, you should, to the best of your ability, not utter it, right? So no point saying strong words, scolding people, because after all, it is something wrong, not true, and not helpful. All right. Now let's look at the next one. Number 2, when you know the strong words uttered before another to be true, right, but not beneficial, you should not train. You should train yourself not to utter it. Again, it is right and true, but not helpful. So again, don't speak publicly in a strong way. But when you know the strong words uttered before another to be true, right, beneficial, then you may utter those strong words knowing the right time to do so. So here, you may speak strong words, but it must be done at the right time. I suppose this also refers to writing. If I want to say, when I write essays, I have to make sure I'm writing it at the right time. So for me, the right time is in the context of the suttas, referring to things which are relevant and correct and true. So it is in reference to this that it is said, you should not utter secret speech, you should not utter strong words before another. All right? And now we come to 3E, okay? Nearing the end already, no? Speaking without hurry. You should speak without hurry, not hurriedly. So it is said. In what connection is this said? Here, bhikshus, when you speak hurriedly, the body tires, the mind is agitated, the mind is troubled. The voice suffers and the throat becomes sore. The speech of one who speaks hurriedly is unclear and hard to understand. So this is quite straightforward. Basically, the Buddha says, speak gently. Here, bhikshus, when you speak unhurriedly, the body does not tire, the mind is not agitated, the voice does not suffer, and the throat is not sore. The speech of one who speaks unhurriedly is clear and easy to understand. So it is in reference to this that it is said you should speak without hurry, not hurriedly. So this is quite straightforward. So this, of course, applies to any one of us when we want to communicate. Now we come to the last part, F, 3F, section 12, 3F. You should not cling to a local or regional language. You should not reject standard usage or common idiom. So it is said. In what connection is this said? How, bhikshus, is there clinging to a local language and rejection of standard usage? Okay, next section. Here, bhikshus, in different regions, they call a bowl pati, patta, vita, serawa, daropa, ona, or pisila. Now, this is where I don't translate the words because they are actual dialect words. In fact, you translate all these words mean bowl, see? So here the Buddha is saying if you go to different parts of India, they will use this word to mean bowl. Thus, whatever they call it in such and such a region, they speak accordingly, firmly adhering to the words and insisting only this is right, everything else is wrong. This is how bhikshus is clinging to local language and rejection of standard usage. So, in other words, you should not get caught up with merely speaking local language. You should know what the standard words are so that everyone can understand. And how bhikshus is there neither clinging to a local language nor rejection of standard usage? Here, bhikshus in different regions, they call a bowl, pati, patta, vita, sarawa, daropa, pona, or pisila. Thus, whatever they call it in such a region without adhering to the words, one speaks accordingly. Now here what's interesting is the Buddha says, you can use those words, yes, but don't get caught up with it. Don't use only that word, okay? In other words, be flexible. This is how bhikshus, there's neither clinging to a local language nor rejection of standard usage. Know when to use the proper word, when to be flexible so that people can understand it, right? So it is said with reference to this, that it is said, you should not cling to a local language. You should not reject standard usage, right? So in other words, even you're speaking to a special group, you can also use other words so that they have a better idea. If they cannot understand one word, they can guess or at least understand the other word that you use. Right? Okay, so now the Buddha has finished giving all these teachings. Now there is the summation. The Buddha summarizes. This part is very easy. I just need to read to you slowly so to show you a summary of what we have just studied. 1. Here, bhikshus, the pursuit of pleasure of one whose happiness is connected with sense pleasure, low, vulgar, coarse, ignoble, not beneficial, is a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. As such, this is a state of conflict. Here, bhikshus, letting go of the pursuit of pleasure of one whose happiness is connected to sense pleasure, low, vulgar, coarse, ignoble, not beneficial, is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. As such, this is a state of non-conflict. So the stress is on the action, not person. 2. Here, bhikshus, the pursuit of self-mortification, painful, ignoble, not beneficial, is a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. As such, this is a state of conflict. Here, bhikshus, letting go of the pursuit of self-mortification, painful, ignoble, not beneficial, is a state without suffering. without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. As such, this is a state of non-conflict. So here again is the action, letting go, that we're talking about, not the person. 3. Here bhikshus, without turning to either of these extremes, there is the middle way, fully understood, self-awakened to by the Tathagata, that gives rise to knowledge, to vision, to knowledge, to peace, to direct knowledge, to awakening, to nirvana. This is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. As such, this is a state of non-conflict. Now 4, further down, neither praise, this is the next one, 13.23b, neither praise nor blame. Here bhikshus, praise and blame and failure to teach only dhamma are a state of suffering. Trouble, despair, fever, it is the wrong way. As such, this is a state of conflict. Here bhikshus, neither praising nor blaming, teaching only dhamma, is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without conflict. It is the right way. As such, this is a state of non-conflict. 13.3. Here bhikshus, sensual pleasure, a dung of pleasure, a pleasure of the crowd, and ignoble pleasure is a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. As such, this is a state of conflict. Here bhikshus, the joy of renunciation, the joy of seclusion, the joy of peace, the joy of awakening is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. As such, this is a state of non-conflict. So notice all these, the state is referred to, not the person. Now speech. Okay. Here bhikshus, secret speech that is false, wrong, not beneficial, is a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. As such, this is a state of conflict. Here bhikshus, secret speech that is true, right, but not beneficial, is a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. As such, it is a state of conflict. Here bhikshus, secret speech that is true, right, beneficial is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. As such, this is a state of non-conflict. I highlighted non-conflict, but this is the happy one. Strong words. Here bhikshus, strong words uttered before another that are false, wrong, not beneficial, are a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. As such, this is a state of conflict. So if it's still a conflict, we should not resort to it, right? 5. Here bhikshus, strong words uttered before another that are true, right, but not beneficial are a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. As such, this is a state of conflict. 6. Here bhikshus, strong words uttered before another that are true, right, beneficial are a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. As such, this is a state of non-conflict. Okay, now next. Unhurried speech. Here bhikshus, speech that is spoken unhurriedly, a state of suffering. Sorry, speech that is spoken hurriedly is a state of trouble, suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. As such, this is a state of conflict. Here bhikshus, speech that is spoken unhurriedly is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. This is the right way. As such, this is a state of non-conflict. 13.6 about language. Here, bhikshus clinging to local language and rejecting standard usage are a state of suffering, trouble, despair, fever. It is the wrong way. As such, this is a state of conflict. Don't get caught up only with one dialect. Here, bhikshus not clinging to a local language and not rejecting standard usage is a state without suffering, without trouble, without despair, without fever. It is the right way. As such, this is a state of non-conflict. Conclusion, finally, we come to the end of the sutta. Therefore, bhikshus, you should train yourselves thus. We will know a state of conflict, and we will know a state of non-conflict. Having known the state of conflict and having known the state of non-conflict, we will follow the way of non-conflict. So you must know these 6 teachings so that you know how to decide, is this something that will cause conflict, unhappiness in others, or it will cause non-conflict, happiness, inspired joy in others, and you should use the right one. Now, bhikshus, the house lord's son, Subhuti, is one who has followed the way of non-conflict. So this monk, Subhuti, is the brother, younger brother of Anathapindika. So he's famous for this. When he teach Dhamma, he doesn't talk about people, he talks about the state only. This is what the Blessed One said. Satisfied, the monks rejoice in the Blessed One's word. Sadhu. There you are. So this is a simple sutta, and yet it takes quite a long time. We have about 6 minutes for questions. Okay.
Thank you, Piya. Now we'll pass the session to Sister Isim. Sister Isim, please.
Thank you, Sister Ratna.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brother Piya, for the Sutta teaching. The first question from Brother LCO. Sir Piya, the common mindset of human being to live life to the fullest, be free, be happy, not restricted. Such general statement in view of this sutta, how are we to discern from sensual pleasure versus dhamma understanding, to have right will, right intention, and so on? If we are to become practitioners, are we to live a life of neutrality and be oblivious of life as a whole in the mundane livelihood as laymen?
You know, look at the Buddha. How did the Buddha come to this teaching? He experienced a lot of things in life, and he noticed all these things that he experiences. Then he begins to see when there is A, there is A1, and there's B, there's B1. Yeah? So live life any way you like. But notice what happens when you do all these things. So you must be wise enough to know that if you do this action, then the consequences are like this. Obviously, you should stop doing it. Right? I mean, you can say, oh, just live life, enjoy life. That doesn't mean anything, you know. You got to know what you are doing. And then notice what is the effect. So then all these things you're experiencing is teaching you. Like they say, the first time is education. So maybe you try one time, you find, oh, this is not good, I'm not going to do it. But there are also some things you know it's not worth doing. Like for example, you're not going to bomb somebody's house or whatever. I mean, that is not, you know very well, that will cause suffering to others. So there are some things we can infer. We don't have to do it ourselves, but we look at the situation, we know this is not wise doing. So that's how we adjust ourselves and learn from experience. All right. Okay, next question, please.
Thank you, Brother Piya. The next question from Brother Asiya. The ending of the sutta is clear, concise, and hit the nail on the head. But having understood the rule of thumb and in trying to be in conformity, the super thin line to move forward and backwards becomes a lifelong tug of war for practitioner. I'm wondering when will this end to full awakening? As the old saying, old habit die hard.
So, well, okay, you're just making a statement, so I don't think I need to answer anything there. All right.
The next question from Sister Liu Gyok.
Yeah.
What are the Pali words for state of conflict and non-conflict? Thank you.
Non-conflict is Arana, non-conflict. Remember, R in front means not. Rana is conflict. R-A-N-A means conflict. Okay, so it's in the title. All right. Any more questions?
There's no question in the chat box.
Mhm.
Any brother and sister would like to unmute and ask your question verbally?
Well, for a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Sister Pratisha.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Patricia.
On page 110, under the middle way, it is going after sense pleasures is explained as it is vulgar, but then between brackets it is said vulgar means the way of the village. What is the way of the village?
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is Sutta language. You can also, in modern English, you can say the way of the world, the way of the world. People get married, they have affairs, they have children, you know. So, and if they are rich, they want to have relationship with as many people as they can because they have the money. So, in that sense.
So, like worldly also.
Worldly, yeah. You can
Yeah,
use the word worldly. Yes. So this is a Sutta language, Indian Sutta language, saying the way of the world. Yeah. Because remember that the Buddha is talking about a time when the towns are coming up, but there's still your village, Gama. Gama can also translate as town, if you like. So it's a kind of metaphor. The way of the world would be a good modern translation, a modern alternate translation. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sure. Any more questions?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
I have
sure.
another question.
Okay.
So, so we try to walk the middle way.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to go to extremes. But I was wondering, is it only a decision of the mind to not to pursue, how do you say it, go after sense pleasure or another extreme? Or is it also because practicing dhamma makes these tendencies to go to extremes, makes it less in a natural, as a natural consequence? Do you understand what?
See, as I said, if you don't understand what the sutta is saying, or maybe you only have a rough idea, easy idea what the sutta is saying, you do experience things for yourself. Make those mistakes in a careful way, right? When I say this, I mean, watch what you're doing. What is going to happen when you do this? And make sure the mistake is not too big. If it's too big, you cannot, recover, then of course not worth it. Sometimes I'm talking about relationships, for example. You make a friend and you find this person is not really a good person, then you have to back out, you have to move away, all right? So the idea is to learn from your experience and then see how far you're going. Are you going to extreme? All right. So, for example, let's say if I notice that I spend too much time on Facebook or too much time chatting on the, I have to answer a lot of questions on Facebook, for example, but I always limit my time so that I don't get carried away, even searching for things on the internet, right? You can get carried away. So you must tell yourself, okay, this is when I have to stop. This is where I cut off my spending time here, because I got to get back to my translation work or writing my essay. So you must basically, moral virtue, moral conduct means knowing when to stop, knowing when to say no. Let's say you go shopping and you find this is wonderful, I want to buy this, buy that, and they're expensive things. But then there's a time when you say, okay, I have to stop. So that knowing when to stop is a very important quality in moral virtue.
Yeah, and that is, then you do it with your mind. But I am wondering if we practice Dhamma, if it also becomes natural, more, less attractive to go after all these things.
Yes,
That's my question.
it becomes more natural. With
Yeah. So
yes.
it is one part of it. It's you have to decide,
Yes,
and the other part is because of the practice.
yeah,
It naturally becomes so it makes it more easy because
yes,
it's yeah.
correct. So in
Well,
other words, your experience make it natural for you to say no, to stand back, or to do something, right? You know why, when, how. So that's the meaning of natural, through experience. So it is, that means you're, in one word, you are wise. So this is the meaning of wisdom here. All right.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any last minute question? Because we over time.
Brother LCO raised his hand.
I like to ask under the Sutta they give local language and standard language.
Yes.
So for me, I hope I did not. I interpret a part of it as local language would be. Nowadays a lot of common people like to speak vulgarism. Okay, so vulgarism actually cause trouble. Okay, so
What's the word again?
vulgarism.
Oh, vulgar words, is it? Yeah. Okay. So
Yes,
your question is,
I take it as too much of the local language is vulgarism, and the standard language is proper language.
not necessary, not necessary. You can just mean dialect, you know. Okay, let me just answer this last question. You find among close friends, especially workers, young people, they tend to use rough words. But among friends, they know that it's just a gesture, it's the way they've been brought up, and young people do that. And sometimes it's even a sign of their friendship, their closeness. But there is a time and place for such things when, as we grow older, as we go out into public, you find there are people we do not know. So it's very important to either use a neutral language or pleasant language. So this idea of knowing the circumstances is also learning when will it cause conflict or not. If it does cause conflict, we should not use that kind of language. And in Buddhism, Piya vacha meaning suitable language, lovely language, loving, pleasant speech, right, is important. Then people like to listen to us, they feel peaceful. You notice that when we're counseling, it's not just what we counsel, but how we talk also is very important. You find that people feel peaceful listening, people feel good. That's important. All right. Okay, on that note, I think we will stop now. Is that all right? Rana, have you taken your
No,
photo?
not yet.
Okay. All right. So
Everyone.
before we end, just turn on your cameras, everyone, so we can get a family photo of you. Okay. And that's very nice to see everyone. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
A few more people. Some no camera setting. All right. Right now, go ahead.
All right. Just a moment.
Okay. Phyllis is there. Yes.
All right.
Winston is not
There
there.
is no camera.
Okay.
Okay.
So no cameras. All right.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Smart.
Okay. Just
All
a
right.
universal smile from all over the world.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Now we will close this very important moment. This is, as I said, this is where we create mental karma. Remember this moment of peace we have joined, we have shared together, but reciting the 3 refuges, the 5 precepts, practicing meditation, listening to the Dhamma. Remember this. Feel the peace. It's a time to send out your thoughts of kindness, loving kindness to yourself. May you be well and happy, healthy, wise, so that you can continue listening to the Dhamma and benefiting, and also share your joy and peace with others. Send your kind thoughts to your loved ones, to your teachers, that they too may be well and happy. Send your kind thoughts to your neighbors and people around and all those that you know, wherever they may be. So this is that wonderful time to do so. And now we close by saluting the 3 jewels that we value with deep gratitude, because they bring us wisdom and joy and peace. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.